How will AI have an impact on how we deliver cyber education?
I think with anything that's new, any new technology or service, it's there's going to be pros and cons of everything. Will it be the silver bullet that solves all our problems?
Oh yeah, I'm a big proponent of know your enemy. If you think AI is going to be disruptive or dangerous for you, then you need to know as much about it as possible.
There's a lot of opportunity that's out there within the cyber industry. Over the last 3 years alone, we've seen a dramatic drop within the workforce. People got used to working from home. People, they no longer want to go back into the office.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things to where we also seen an uptick within remote opportunities. And as we all know, cyber is one of those fields that does offer a lot of remote opportunities that are out there. Welcome to the TopCyberPro podcast, the show where we bring experts in the cybersecurity industry to share their valuable knowledge, experience, tips, tools, techniques, and resources to help you become a top cyber pro. And now, here's your host for this episode, Terry Thompson. Welcome to the Cyber Roundtable. Today we have cybersecurity expert Jim West and Paul Morgan, and we are going to dive into some very important questions. Before we dive into those questions, Jim, Paul, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Terry.
Paul, thank you so much. Jim, what's going on, man?
Oh, same old, same old. Another day, another day. Every day is Monday.
Every day is Monday, I swear. I can use this in any conversation, no matter what it is. Every day is Monday. But here we go. I want to dive into the roundtable here real quick because there's a lot of questions that are happening out there within the cyber world that I really want to get two experts. We got two experts here today, and I want to get some different perspectives, some different opinions on these questions here. Number one, the advent of artificial intelligence that's out there within the world, it's shaking up the world. It truly is. It is shaking up the world. It's disrupting a lot of different things that are out there. And I want to know, do you feel that artificial intelligence will have an impact on how we deliver cyber education? How will that impact on how we educate the world out there on artificial intelligence? Because it is new, it's emerging, it's taking off. But how do we educate people on that? Because right now there's a lot of people that are scared, a lot of people that are feared. They're going to lose their jobs. They want to use it. They don't want to use it. They just don't know how to approach that. How do we approach that? Jim, I want to go over to you first and get your thoughts on how will AI have an impact on how we deliver cyber education?
I think with anything that's new, any new technology or service, it's there's going to be pros and cons of everything. Will it be the silver bullet that solves all our problems? Maybe not at first. And like any tool, it depends on how you apply the tool, right? I think as far as the question in regards to education, where I see the AI helping us is as far as content generation. We have a lot of scenarios that we have to plan for and do incident response scenarios, and a lot of times people have limits on what their imaginations can do. I'll refer to back after 9/11, the government paid a lot of different organizations to bring in actually Hollywood script writers to come up with what are the doomsday catastrophic national security scenarios that our country could face, and to see if our contingency plans and response plans would adequately work against those. Where I see the AI is maybe creating better, more complex scenarios for like purple teaming, red team operations. I see that there could be applications there to harness the creativity of the tool. I know that there's already, script and code being generated by these tools. So the flip side of that, it may be able to generate more sophisticated and quicker packages for malware and bad software, but at the same time, maybe could come up with better planned defenses against it. So again, with any tool, you have a negative and a positive. It just depends on how you use it. So it's going to be interesting how that develops.
And it's still learning too. I mean, I've used, different things and different tools that are out there, and I've had to play with my scripting. I've had to play with how, I've had to modify, tweak, and change different ways in which I've asked this software, that's out there in some of these different platforms. It's like, it wasn't perfect because guess what? It's still learning. It truly is. And I think that it's in its infancy, but as this thing grows, as it gets smarter, as it gets more intelligent, that machine learning that thing is doing is really, it begs to differ. And you hit on something. Will it ever humanize itself? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Is that for me or Paul?
It's an open question.
Paul, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. I think that AI is a great technology, and it's definitely going to help us out. I like your example, Jim, how it's going to help us kind of think outside the box, especially on creative things. But I think that at least in the short term, it's still going to need the humans to kind of help guide it as it learns. And so I don't expect it to get to the point where it's replacing too many people. It may replace some things that we would just replace with a tool anyways. But I think we're still going to be a partner. It's going to be more of a partnership with the AI than it is something that replaces us.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And as we are learning, as it's evolving, as we, as you say, operators, it really opens up the question of job market opportunities in reference to artificial intelligence, because I truly believe you're going to have two different sides of the group here. You're going to have people that are going to be scared of it. They don't want to approach it. They don't want to mess with it. It's the catastrophic end of the world. And I'm not touching that. And then you open up the other side of that where people are excited. I'm excited about it. I'm like, man, this is some great stuff. This is some cool. I want to break it. I want to play with it. I want to get after all this stuff right here. But what job market opportunities do you see in reference to AI? Especially within the cyber security industry? Paul, over to you first.
I think the first thing that leaps out at me is analyzing large data sets. We have tools and we have people that do that, especially in security operating centers. But if we could have an AI do that and then kind of send out alerts for us to verify, I think that's a great use for AI. I'm kind of in the camp of don't trust AI's output 100%. I'm a trust but verify tactic on AI, and I think that's a great application. What do you think, Jim?
Actually, I wanted to kind of circle back something you said, Terry, about people being fearful of something new. And let's approach this from a logical viewpoint. We know AI is here and it's not going to go away. So with that being a reality, people that are fearful of the change and they're slower to embrace it are going to be just slower to adapt to those changes in the marketplace or to their industries and careers. So my advice to people that are like, hey, spend some time watching some YouTube videos, doing some Google searches, read beyond the titles and the headlines, read a little bit, educate yourself, because look at it, like I said earlier, it's like a tool. It's another tool in your tool belt that will augment your productivity or that will augment your capacity to perform your job. And so I would say embrace the change instead of being fearful of it, because at a minimum, it's going to be an augmentation, or it will be just another resource that we can use to do our jobs more effectively or efficiently.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Paul, any additional thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I'm a big proponent of know your enemy. If you think AI is going to be disruptive or dangerous for you, then you need to know as much about it as possible. Hopefully you learn that it's a great tool that will help you instead, but you need I think that most people need to know what it's about, how it really works, read through the sensation, and then either plan for it or against it, but at least be educated on it.
Yeah, I love that. And this is an open question for both of you, because I'm an analytical person. I love deep diving and analyzing different things. And within the business world, we have a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's dive into the SWOT of AI. What are the strengths that you foresee within AI?
So yeah, I'll go first. I think a first strength is just outside of the box thinking. It kind of adds potentially, it depends on who programs it. It potentially takes away the cultural, historical factors that a lot of us keep in our minds, the subconscious stuff that we can't kind of get past. It can take some of that away and allow a fresh perspective from a non-human. So I think that's one great strength.
Yeah, Jim, over to you. What do you feel is a strength of AI?
It's kind of like there was a point in I'm old enough, and Terry, I know you are, Paul. I'm not sure if you were old enough where there was a time where we would have to, if we wanted directions, instead of just telling our phone, map me to this destination, we had to go to MapQuest or have an actual foldable map where we'd have to chart and read a map or print out MapQuest directions and read them from a printout. And even then, we would have to look in a telephone book for phone numbers or memorize our home numbers. But now, as technology has augmented our reality or made our reality more convenient, we have our phones are many computers in our hands. So I look to the strength of AI as just, again, making our lives more easier, maybe taking care of that rudimentary thinking and those processes that we have to do repetitively, and then freeing us up to do more, maybe more decision making, or maybe it can also be geared to do the complex thinking. But the power and strength, I think, of it is, imagine instead of just having one mind, you have the collective of millions of minds that are powering the AI, and you have a million plus brains that work for you, doing all of that thinking for you to help you maybe get down to the decisions you need to make. Here's your choices. Here's all the analysis that's been done based upon all the information and data available. And then to you as the operator, I guess, of the AI, you get to make the decision of what you're going to do. So I think the strength is having a collective of brains, if you will, working for you.
I love that. Let's dive into weaknesses. Paul, back over to you. What are the weaknesses of AI?
Oh, man. Right now there's a lot, but I think one big one is that a lot of information, we need to know where the source of truth for that information is, to be able to validate that it's true. And AI pulls information from lots of places without really citing. It can cite, but sometimes you don't know where that information came from. You don't know how valid the information is, and in making decisions on incomplete or invalid information, or from third party, it's like that game of telephone. If AI is one or two links in that telephone game, you may end up with bad information, and that's definitely a current weakness. Hopefully we're working on resolutions for it.
I love that. Jim, over to you.
As far as weaknesses, obviously as a machine, it still is rooted in rules and zeros and ones at the end of the day, even though there's a lot more than that going on. I believe that the capacity for empathy and to look at things subjectively versus objectively may arise, such as concerns over ethics or morality. Whereas, generally speaking, through science fiction and movies like Terminator and all these doomsday stuff, we've seen it's always viewed machines as something that would perceive things from the good of the many, or what the best solution is based upon data available. But again, you feed it bad data or misinformation, what's the things that it then outputs from that? What is the consequences of that? And when you have a system that is maybe not sentient enough to have a degree of empathy to look beyond just the data into the overall, maybe the global context or the scenario context of what's going on besides just data points. Terry, I could know everything about your morning routine, that you go to Starbucks at 6:15 every morning, you take this highway. I'm just giving an example, but let's say I knew your routine every day. I can make a lot of assumptions based upon that routine. But then again, I won't know everything about you just because I know where you go in your day. You can get a little bit of understanding, but I think the bigger picture sometimes is what AI could fail to miss based upon the data that's made available and the context of that data.
I love that. And let's dive into opportunities. I feel that there's a lot of opportunity that's on the table, but I'm curious as to what are your thoughts on opportunity. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, one opportunity, and this is directly related to cybersecurity, is private AI, because I don't want to go over to ChatGPT and say, hey, what's the best way to secure Cisco ASA, right? I want to be able to answer, I want to be able to feed information and get responses in a private setting where I'm controlling all the data that's in the AI. And I think that's a big opportunity for the future.
I love that. Jim, over to you.
I do like that. Privatized AI, I think, has definitely a future, or at least cloud-based that's containerized to the company. But as far as the real opportunities that are going to come to, I really believe corporations will have their uses for it, but it's going to be interesting to see how, as an individual, how we allow AI to augment ourselves beyond just pure creativity, but what other manifestations it will take. So I think that there's a bigger picture to come into focus, but I can't perceive that right now. But I'll be interested to see how, as individuals, besides just generating content for blogs or videos or social media, which is what the rave is now. What is it really going to do for the everyday person? How is it going to make your life easier, more convenient? You know, that's to be determined, I think.
Jim, thank you. And finally, what are the threats? Paul, over to you.
I think the biggest threat to me is, data poisoning. If AI is going to pull from the internet at large, we already know there's a lot of information or just incorrect information out there. But I could see a persistent threat actor going out there and creating 1 million blogs saying, let's just, as an example, Ukraine is losing the war. And then AI is going to come back and regurgitate that information back to us. So it kind of draws back to that weakness of source of truth. We need to make sure that, the data in is good, because, the data out, like Jim just said, could go into a blog, and then that's just another data point. We get a fractal problem going down the line.
Jim, over to you.
I'll just keep it to one word, Terry: Skynet. I think James Cameron has brought us several films in a franchise to warn us of the dangers of AI. And but no, I believe the threats are only going to be the ones that, ones that we allow. I mean, as long as we use, Isaac's rules of robotics, as long as the AIs does not, they don't become sentient and take over weapon systems, which is, again, Skynet. Short of a doomsday scenario, I think that AI has a great potential to help us. As far as threats, with anything that's disruptive, there's going to be change. And again, if people perceive the change as a threat, I think they need to just adjust their perspective. And again, get ahead of the curve, embrace the technology, embrace learning, so that you can adapt quicker and you can be at the forefront of that change and leading your business or part of your industry in that change, using that tool moving forward. And that's the smarter play.
I love that. Now, AI it's a tool, it's a resource, it's readily available out there for people to use. And I truly believe that it opens up an opportunity for anyone that's out there to learn that skill, to put that within their toolkit. I want to shift gears and dive into the most important skills anyone in the cyber industry must focus on to remain relevant or prepared for potential or future growth. Now, I know AI is one of them, but is there anything else, any other skills, knowledges, or skills that are out there that you truly believe that somebody must focus on or should focus on moving forward? Paul, over to you.
Now, I think this is a kind of maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, but I am very interested in quantum computing, especially from a security point of view. Once we figure out the way around error correction, I think quantum computing is going to be a big both boon and threat for cybersecurity. And there's already stuff coming out. The NIST released quantum cryptography standards already. And I think that people should really keep abreast of that, so that when it does come out, you're not suddenly trying to break open a physics book to figure out how you're going to encrypt your data.
I love that. Jim, over to you. Same question.
So I do definitely concur. I believe that IBM has, I want to say it's Kismet. They also have their online public facing quantum lab, where people can begin learning quantum coding, if you will, quantum code development. I believe that because that's been made free, and again, I'll double check, but it was initially free, that if it is still a free resource, that's something everyone that is interested into, the next disruptive technology is quantum computing and the applications and platforms by which code has to be developed for it. I think people that embrace that will find themselves, at least in the first 1 to 5 years of that expanse across industry, in a very lucrative job market, because you won't have many people that are ready to fill the need. So you'll be very much in demand. I would definitely encourage people to look at that. And Terry, if we do find the links, maybe we can put them somewhere online or for people to click. But I believe it's IBM Kismet is the site where people can get free training on quantum code development.
I love that. And speaking of links, Paul, you and I, we had a recent conversation here about your career and certification roadmaps. I love them. Jim, we had, oh my goodness, Jim and myself, we had about a 2-hour long conversation, and it was just a brain dump of like, oh my goodness, I was overwhelmed. Jim was breaking it down for me. We was just really kind of going back and forth on this whole roadmap. I love your roadmaps, by the way. First and foremost, I just want to say that your roadmaps are not only helping shape the future of cybersecurity, but it's also giving HR departments a roadmap on how they can potentially hire people within cybersecurity as well too. So there's a lot to unpack with that right there. But aside from your roadmaps, and I want to know, what are some other resources that are out there that we are missing, or is there any resources that you yourself are working on that is going to be the future roadmap or the future resource for somebody to utilize?
Yeah, so the first one that comes to mind is, I mentioned it, I think a little earlier, is the NICE Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. NICE, which is a subdivision of NIST, they're putting a lot of effort into quantifying what employers need for cybersecurity personnel, for the cybersecurity workforce, what skills those people need to have, and what competencies that they need. I really think that going to the NICE website, looking up cybersecurity workforce framework, will really help you kind of put a lot of context around, like, I know I have all these skills, like I know how to do web designing, but I also know how to exploit mobile code. Well, how can I put all that together into a resume? Or you're an HR person, and how can I find the right candidate? What skills should I list on there besides, must be a hard worker? And I think the NICE Cybersecurity Workforce Framework is a great tool for that.
Yeah, Jim, over to you.
Oh, I concur. It's a great spot for people to, have a starting point, right? And I think what roadmaps do for people, it gives them both a place to start as well as to see the destinations that they could choose from. A lot of times when you say, hey, someone says, I want to get into cybersecurity, the first question I have is, well, what do you like about cybersecurity? Because it depends on what they're exposed to, right? Some people think it's coding and hacking. Some people think it's running around with clipboards and asking questions, doing assessment audits. Some people think it's just, it's just wearing suits and talking at conferences and running board meetings. Again, it depends on people's exposure and what their perspective is of the industry. And what I like about your career roadmap, it kind of breaks it down by, if you look at the right side, it's like that task. What is the primary task that you're supporting in the industry? And you kind of go to the left side with the disciplines or the knowledge and the job titles as they flow from, what I would consider entry level all the way to the expert level. And so I like that roadmaps, again, are there. People can use them. A lot of times people are just clueless. They're like, I want to get into cybersecurity. I see it on the news all the time. There's a gap. There's jobs. They're hiring. I'm ready to work. What can I do? And I always like to start with, what are you interested in? Because at the end of the day, when you're having to read and study to get a cert or to get, experience and knowledge in the subject, it should be something at least you're interested in at a minimum, or hopefully passionate about. So that way you will be more inclined to, embrace it and stay on top of it.
And all of us have a military background, and it's one of those things to where I remember when I got ready to transition from the military, I was struggling. Even while I was in the military, it was one of those things that I just didn't know what I didn't know. I had an MOS career map, and it was like, within my MOS, here's your career map from private all the way up to sergeant major. It was one of those things that I kind of knew, and it was really limited. It definitely was not as extensive as yours, Paul. I truly wish that I would have had this thing years ago, or I would have been aware of it years ago, because I definitely would have used it, recommended it to all of my soldiers to take a look, and it would have helped me really kind of coach, teach, train, mentor, guide, counsel, developmentally counsel my soldiers as well within their career. It's a tremendous resource. And Paul, I just want to personally thank you, for putting in your time, your effort, your energy into that, because it's a truly valuable resource. But having said that, all of us, we have that military background, and I truly believe that there is a huge weakness between service members transitioning from military service to civilian life. there's a gap there, and we're not always given the tips, tools, techniques, and resources to transition properly. We have a TAP program, transition assistance program, and I went through it, and I'm going to be honest with you, it sucked. It was 100% hot garbage, and it was one of those things to where I truly believe that there is an opportunity out there for people like us to create and fill and bridge that gap with our expertise, our resources, the things that we have. So here's my question. What is your recommendation for anyone transitioning from the military to the civilian sector? There could be a lot to unpack with this. What is your recommendation?
So first, through the official channels, TAP has gotten a little bit better. I know a couple soldiers are getting out soon, and I highly recommend taking them up on the offer to do industry internships, where they'll send you off for, I can't remember, like 6 months, where you can work as an intern for a cyber company, and then then you finish out your last the rest of your term. I would highly recommend putting a lot of thought into that, figuring out what company you can apply for, making sure your resume is good to get into those internships. And then also there's a lot of veteran programs out there from individual companies. I know like Splunk is one of them. They offer one for learning how to use a SIEM. Then there's Cool, I believe, which is another NIST program. They have some links that will help you get in with some other companies that have free training for transitioning veterans. And then there's government service. They have internships. They have, I can't remember what they call them, but it's like a internship where if you're a transitioning soldier, you can go in and you can be a government service employee for a certain amount of time, like you were a college graduate. So I think those are all great programs to go and take a look at.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much. Jim, over to you. What are your recommendations for anyone transitioning from military to civilian?
I think it just comes down to, asking the right questions, seeking, asking you shall find, right? Or asking you'll get the answer. The Google, YouTube, there's just thousands of playlists and channels out there to educate you. There's, of course, all the federal and government and defense programs that are available to help with transitioning. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, if you could read and comprehend, then you can do cybersecurity. It's not rockets. The only thing that's rocket science is rocket science. And with cybersecurity, if you could read and comprehend, you could start anywhere. You could start reading NIST 800 series documents. You could start reading about risk management framework. You could start with the cybersecurity framework, which is probably not a good place. You could start with a MITRE ATT&CK. You could start with, just start anywhere. Just pick a thing and start reading about it. And as you read about it, you're going to quickly discover, hey, this is interesting and intriguing. I want to keep learning more. Or, this is not really for me. Let me pick somewhere else. But start somewhere. I always tell someone, if you're not sure which direction to go and pick one direction, you're going to go somewhere instead of being stuck where you are. So yeah, I would say pick any resource, pick any avenue, just start somewhere. And then if you don't like it, you can always adjust course.
I love that. Jim, Paul, thank you so much for all of your amazing feedback here today. I want to close the show with final thoughts here, because we unpacked a lot of things. We primarily focused on AI, but I really believe that there's a lot of opportunity that's out there within the cyber industry. Within, over the last 3 years alone, we've seen a dramatic drop within the workforce. People got used to working from home. People, they no longer want to go back into the office. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things to where we also seen an uptick within remote opportunities. And as we all know, cyber is one of those fields that does offer a lot of remote opportunities that are out there. I want to hear final thoughts here on what is the future of cybersecurity, and what would be your recommendation for somebody moving forward as the future of cybersecurity?
Yeah, so future cybersecurity, I think that safe places are governance, risk, and compliance. It's something that we're always going to need. So if that's something that you're interested in, then I really say drilling down in that is great. Another great opportunity is it's kind of cliche to say, but the cloud. Not just the cloud though, but mostly like the identity and access management that goes along in that, the API security that goes along with that. Drill down, don't just say cloud, drill down into a niche in there, because I think there's a lot of them that are currently understaffed, but also new ones that are coming out as we transition things that were normally privatized, in the data centers are now going to the cloud. We're still transitioning that way, and we're finding new and unique risks that need professionals to find solutions for.
I love that, Paul. Thank you so much for your time here today. Jim, over to you. What are your final thoughts?
Terry, it's a great question about thinking about the future of cybersecurity. I think the future of cybersecurity for a lot of professionals is rooted in the past, and I'll quantify what I mean by that. I think when it comes to security programs, security awareness, security, anything, that you have to get the basics right. You have to start with a good foundation, get the basics right first, before you start bringing in these, hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollar tools and expert systems and, bring in Splunk, you got this tool and that tool, and tools are great. Don't get me wrong. Expert systems, they're perfect in what they do for the focuses that they have. But I think what happens is we get to thinking at this high level, we forget about the foundations that we need to make sure that that's locked down, that we got repeatable, secure processes in place. We're repurposing, reusing, and redirecting our resources at our local level, keeping our house and organizations clean for what we can control, and then start looking at the gaps, from there. So, take it back old school. Start with the foundation and do your gap analysis, realize what are your new threats as they change, and then target that way. Trying to, put all your efforts into, cloud compute. Again, there might be, instances where you may want to on-prem or do a hybrid setup. There's other tools, AI and other technologies that you may embrace to one degree or another. But before you do any of the higher level advanced stuff, make sure that you're handling the basics, job rotation, limit use, privilege level account management, all those basic security concepts. You got to have that rock solid, because when you look at a lot of breaches, it's the simple things that keep getting people owned and keep undermining all these great tools that you're spending all this money on acquiring, learning, training on it. But it'll be the simplest thing. Earlier today, Terry is a great example. When we were first getting on the Zoom call, I said, "I can't hear you, Terry. I can't hear you, Terry." And what was it? It was the mute button. I was doing a bunch of video stuff, and I had muted my laptop earlier. And so it's like the simplest thing. And here I am, like, well, is it the application? Is it this? And I'm already up here. And it was the most simplest thing in the world. So I say, for the future of cybersecurity, my advice for people is make sure we get the past, the foundational stuff, the basics right before you start building onto that foundation.
I love that. Jim, Paul, thank you so much for joining us here today. Truly phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jim.
All right. And that right there is what it takes to be a top cyber pro. That is level 99 knowledge, skills, and experience right there. My name is Terry Thompson. I am the host of Top Cyber Pro. And that was Cyber Roundtable right there, where we had absolutely amazing guests, Jim West and Paul Morgan here, talking about AI, the future of cybersecurity, and so much more. Look, if you want some tips, tools, techniques, and resources, make sure that you head on over to TopCyberPro.com. We have our training curriculum. We have a test bank. We have the 2023 Top Cyber Pro Awards we just launched here recently, and so much more. So look, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an expert within the cybersecurity field, head on over to TopCyberPro.com, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.